might not be from Krypton, but he's heads above the rest. His knowledge can't be questioned. You can put it to the test. So if you want to hear the truth and have nowhere else to go, I'll give you the solution. Just tune into his show and just kneel before Zod. Kneel before Zod. Kneel before Zod. Kneel before Zod.
Welcome back to the Phantom Zone. It is the most earth-breaking, ground-shaking, but never media show money-taking. The man, the myth, the legend, the most electrifying villain in all of YouTube entertainment. And on this side of Dune, Arrakis, whatever you want to call it. Welcome today to my Dune Part 2 review. This is going to be spoiler and non-spoiler. So the first half of this will be some non-spoilers. And then once I get into spoilers, I will have a banner to warn everybody who has not seen the movie. Or if you have no interest, you could just check out the spoilers, see if this is something that will interest you. But we are here today to talk about Dune. And pretty soon here, I will have my special guest reviewer joining me, Purpminded. And we are going to break down all things about this movie, everything Dune. Don't you worry, it's going to be pretty epic, pretty special. And I'm going to talk about different things concerning this movie and my thoughts, my ideas. I'm pretty sure Perp hasn't read the books. I have. I know a great deal of the lore. I went back in and brushed up on my Dune lore for this review, so that I can give you some actual thoughts, things I wasn't sure about, that I can talk to you guys about, so I can tell you some of the things that I like and don't like within this film, which, to be quite honest with you, is not much that I don't like in this movie. I'll be giving you my score, but I'm not gonna spoil it quite yet. Don't worry, I'll give you the score before I get into spoilers. But let me just outline the basics for you so you can get a proper feel of what this movie is about. Dune Part 2 is the sequel to Dune Part 1. I wouldn't really call it a sequel, but more of a continuation in this. From what I hear, trilogy of movies. Denis Villeneuve has said he is planning on doing a Part 3. He's got the script ready. Nothing's been greenlit by Warner Bros., but given the success of the movie so far, which we'll go over the box office numbers as of right now, I think it's more than likely they're going to make Part 3. So, first off, let me just give you some general information. Dune is produced by Legendary Pictures. It's directed by Denis Villeneuve, who co-produced and wrote the screenplay with Jon Spaihts, and distributed by Warner Bros. Pictures. It is a sequel, which is inaccurate. I'd say more of a continuation of Dune, the 2021 flick. And it's based on the 1965 novel Dune by Frank Herbert, and it follows Paul Atreides as he unites the Fremen people on the desert planet of Arrakis to wage war against House Harkonnen. It stars Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, Dave Bautista, Zoe Zendaya, Charlotte Rampling, Javier Bardem, Austin Butler, Florence Pugh, Christopher Walken, Léa Seydoux, and yeah, that's pretty much most of the people. And there is a cameo by what's her name? Geez, I always forget. God, why am I blanking out on her name? Uh, uh, not Florence Pugh. She was in. Why am I blanking out on her name? There is a Anna Taylor Joy. There we go. So in this, we pick up directly after the events of Dune Part 1. Paul and his mother are continuing their hike to find the Fremen people. Paul is seeking revenge for uh, House Harkonnen, going out and killing basically Game of Thronesing House Atreides, and so we pick up with them in the desert. So, just to give a general overview and my basic thoughts on the movie, um, I very rarely give tens out here. I think I did for the first three John Wicks. I was a little bit later on John Wick 4 until we did our rewatch, but for the most part, I try to stay in the 8 to 9 category. Uh, and even though, let me just get my rating out of the way here. This to me is definitely in the tens. I have very much. I say this movie is a 10. Go out and see it. Um, it's kind of funny. I took the Little Dictator to see it. My daughter, she had never seen Dune 1 and picked up on Dune 2 fairly quickly. And she knows nothing about the first movie, nothing about the lore. I think this movie is much more accessible. There is a short recap in the beginning of some of the things that happened in part one. And I think that even if you did not see the first movie, this not it does something that movies in a trilogy or that have a long form storytelling kind of like Lord of the Rings and those kinds of trilogies. It This middle part does something really good where by context it makes the first movie much better. I've heard a lot of complaints, especially about the first movie. Now, a lot of people said the first movie was boring. There wasn't a lot of action. um, there's a setup and like, look, I've heard people say like there's a lot of hype around this movie. Okay, and I'm going to be hyping it up myself, but I will be going when I get into my spoiler section. I will be going into my faults with the movie, and that's knowing the lore and having read the books. But from the perspective of somebody who hasn't read Frank Herbert's books, or if you're just coming into this having seen the first movie, I think this movie is great. I think this movie might actually be a movie that is going to be hard to beat out this year as far as awards and things like that, and it's well deserved. I do not believe it's overhyped, but I do think a lot of things people hype up is wrong. Like, look, there's some people who say that, oh, there's a ton of action in this. Look, don't go into this movie thinking that it's a like Fast and Furious kind of action flick. That's not Dune. I think the action and the storytelling is mostly the characters. Hey, lovely Sherry, what's up? And welcome, Perp. Fashionably late, I see.
Yo. Nah, I literally just woke up. That's why I said I'd give you a few minutes.
Well, why, because you were on that fourth watch of Doom.
Nah, I was just
The,
out
how much have you seen this movie?
3 times. Two in Dolby, once in IMAX. I do want to see it again in IMAX though.
Dude, I saw it in IMAX, man. I got to tell the people here, this is a movie you go and see an IMAX movie. You know how they say they make them movies for IMAX? This is an
Yeah.
IMAX movie. You are cheating yourself if you do not see this shit in the biggest screen possible. Uh,
Definitely makes a difference.
oh, yeah, it does. But even if you see this on a normal screen, I was just getting into this and I said, I already know what my rating's going to be. So we're going to dive into spoilers because to say my complaints for the movie, I do have to go to the spoilers. But really, non spoiler thoughts first before we dive into stuff. What do you think of this movie? Do you have any issues? Where do you rate it? That kind of a thing. And then
Um,
I'll give my rating.
I really have a hard time finding an issue with it because once you, because I've rewatched part one just alone, like last month, like after they put back the first one in IMAX because I didn't see it in IMAX when it first came out in theaters. I just saw it in regular Prime. So that just kind of reignited like my hype for the movie because it was like, man, this is such a well told movie. And then like the more you watch both part one and part two, you catch up on more things and it starts to make sense. And I feel like the people that have cons or, disappointments or something like that, when they watch it more times, they'll pick up on those little subtle connections and stuff. Because there's a lot of things that I've missed, like that I didn't catch till like my third watch. But yeah, I'm just overall just this was a great watch. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe my
So
fourth time, I probably have one little nitpick, but it's really not like a negative. But I'll
yeah, I
say
got a
that for
couple
later.
of nitpicks, and I think it's interesting. I wanted to do this with you in particular because I'm gonna assume you haven't read the books. You
No,
don't know much about the lore.
no,
And I find most people who have complaints like me, I read the books, I know the lore. I'll tell you my issues, which kind of go into the end of the movie and how I feel like it could be hard doing Dune Messiah. And I'll talk about that when we get there. But my nitpicks come from the book perspective. And I think a lot of people who will find faults in this movie are going to be people like me that know the Dune lore, that have
some
read
people
the
like the
book.
changes though that watched the that read the book.
I
So
do
it's like
too,
mixed.
but I will tell you some things that they took out, which could create problems for the later movie when we get to the spoilers, because there's some pretty cool ideas and there's things where they set it up in the book where it makes more sense to the position where we're at the end of the movie, where it's going to be kind of hard for the way uh, Villeneuve set up this one. But we'll get to that, and so you can kind of see what I'm saying. But my rating, and I'm just going to tell you right now, and I don't throw this number around lightly. We normally stayed in the 8 or 9, but honestly, I consider this a 10 out of 10. Um, this is as close to me as perfection you get in a movie. Uh, honestly, that I've ever seen. Like if I put it with any movie I've given a 10, like Die Hard, and most of the movies I give a 10 to would be like things that are sentimental to me
Yeah,
or things that are really good. I say this fits in a 10 category. I think this deserves awards, and I'm not talking
for
that
sure.
bullshit cinematography and sound. Like I think there should be some acting
No,
awards
it
in
should it
here.
should sweep. It should sweep. It should get nominated for a lot of things like costume design, like just all the above. Anything that it could get nominated for, give it its nomination for.
And let's be real here. As far as the box office landscape, there's been a lot of trash in the theaters, a lot of garbage.
Yeah, I even said like in my some of my reviews, I was like, yeah, it's gonna be a slump for a while until Dune comes out.
Yeah, and you're 100% right, because right now there's just nothing. And I heard people say, "Oh, Kung Fu Panda comes out," but look, people, Kung Fu Panda is a kids movie. Yeah, that's gonna do well. I don't think that Dune and Kung Fu Panda really cross into each other because it's like two different demographics. You got kids
It's
that maybe like people aren't going to take their kids to see Dune. I took my daughter to see it, but that was because
Yeah, it's definitely that's the only thing that Kung Fu Panda has that's more accessible for everybody than Dune. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
But like at the same time, it's like rewatching Dune now, you can see like the one thing that I picked up on is just how much influence Dune has on other things that I've watched over the years. It's fascinating because it's even like well, I'm not gonna go into that because I'm going to a whole tangent, but
yeah. We'll go into it when we get into the spoilers, but yeah, we could definitely get into that. But yeah, so if you guys want to know our just general ratings, which is only 15 minutes, really, we could talk about general ratings without having to do spoilers to really get into the nitty gritty of things that bug me and stuff like that. I'd say it's a 10 out of 10 for me. Perp, what would be a number rating if you had to give it?
I don't really do number ratings. But if I had to do out of 10, it would definitely be like it'd definitely be a 10. Just because
I was
it's just a quality movie. And I hate this whole notion that like, oh man, like people are over hyping the movie. I was like, well, you got just a good movie overall. Just it's gonna say something when everybody is like saying the same thing. It's just
I mean,
you
we're
gotta
talking
watch it
about
for
all
yourself.
corners of the internet, people
And
who don't quote unquote like woke movies. No one's had a bad thing to say, and I've checked all sides of the internet. And when everybody's united, even with the way things are, you know what I mean? Then
yeah,
that tells you something about the movie.
yeah, for sure. And it's just like you act like this is the first movie that's ever been overhyped. There's plenty of movies that came out, people absolutely loved it. You know what I'm saying? We like just like Infinity War Endgame. Like you're telling me that, oh, why does anybody say that? Oh, those people were paid to say, good things about it, and what I'm saying, it's just a lot of that talk that it's just like, there's no way this movie could be that good. It's overhyped. Blah blah blah. It's the internet. It's just the day and age we live in. Like people are gonna get hyped over things. You just gotta like kind of deal with this stuff.
Cromel says it is the kind of movie that is impossible to do justice just by talking about it. It is an
Right.
experience you have once, but you never thought you'd have again until this one proves you wrong. So, yeah, exactly. It's one of those movies that is an experience. It's why I love talking about movies. It's why me and Perp do reviews and why we get it's the reason we get hyped over things and the love and the passion we have for other things we talk about. This movie truly is one of those experiences they talk about. And I'm glad in my generation, I got to take my daughter to see this movie and she felt the same way. And Purple, I was saying, my daughter's 16, right? She's never seen the first Dune. So she came in not knowing anything that happened in the first movie. I showed it to her after, but and my 16-year-old kid loved it. Okay, she was not lost at all. So I think also too, for how dense the lore is, it's very accessible for people to pick up and understand, especially this film in particular.
Yeah, the youngest demographic I could see like really rocking with this is like 13 and up, probably. Like, I think that's a good demographic around that age and stuff. Because like you try to show a 10-year-old this, they might not like
No, we go that young. They ain't gonna know what the hell's going on,
yeah,
and
they
that's
just see people
where
they just see people getting headshots and stuff like that, which was the beginning scene of this movie is insane. Like
it,
such a
it
well such a well made like just overall opening.
oh yeah, from beginning to end. And I said too, don't think this is a big blockbuster film when you go and see it. This is not. There's a lot more action than the first movie, but this is not that. And I think that also too contributes to some people saying it's slow. I heard a terrible review. I'll tell you about that later. But it's like, oh, I still think it's slow and blah blah blah. Well, Dune is not a movie that's supposed to be like high octane action. That doesn't mean there isn't action. There when action hits, it hits. It's well shot, well made. And we'll get to all of our favorite scenes. I got one scene in particular that's one of my favorites, but
To
yeah,
to your
it's
point to
got good
that,
action.
to your point
But
about that, it's just like look at Oppenheimer. That has literally like one action scene. You know
yep.
what I'm saying? Everything else is dialogue for like 3 hours, bro. And that made 900 and you know what I'm saying?
And I would argue it's still a great movie
Yeah.
because the the intrigue is in the dialogue. And I'm saying, dude is well written. There's not a slouch in acting, and we'll get to all the actors. We're really gonna break it down. Hopefully, I got you for a bit here. Because I really want to break down and get into the nitty gritty of why this is such a great movie and why you should go and see this. And so, yeah, that's our basic review. If you haven't seen it, go see it. We're not overhyping it. And, maybe we are. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe you're one of them crazy people I hear on the internet who downplay how great this
I
movie
can I
really
can
is.
understand I can understand somebody not liking this movie though, to be honest, because
I
it's like
could. It's not going to be for everybody. Some people aren't into the sci-fi genre, and if you're
but
not, you're probably not going to like this.
but that aside, just story wise, I would challenge them to just go rewatch part one and then rewatch part two. Like at least watch both movies twice to see if you really feel like that.
Yeah, yeah. Give them both a shot, and then come back and see us. Leave them in the comments. But now let's go. We're gonna go into spoilers. spoiler territory because what's up, Sean Stackhouse? He says, "What's up, Perp?" And he says, "Zod."
What up, Sean?
So, we're going to break down some of the stuff. So, a bit of a spoilers warning. You've been warned. Let's get into this. So, Dune part two. We'll kind of break down some of the sections to talk about it. Let's talk about opening scene. Right, picks up exactly where the first movie left off. So, yeah, opening scene. The Harkonnen are chasing Paul, the Fremen and stuff who have hidden, and all of a sudden they get headshots. Bro, when I seen this, that setup, that was to me. Uh, I know that is what the counterpoint to the people who say there's not a lot of action, because the first like 20 minutes of this movie is action.
Right.
With
It's
them
like
in the desert
suspenseful.
escaping.
It's suspenseful action. Like,
Oh yeah, because they're looking like they're gonna get them, and then they get sniped out. I do.
yeah,
Did you feel this movie did kind of straddle the line between PG-13 and R? Because there's a lot of things like if you.
absolutely,
Oh yeah, he
absolutely.
pulls back the camera a little bit on some of the shots. We'll talk about the arena in a little bit, but like he pulls back the camera and shows some stuff. There's a lot of people that die pretty gruesomely. Like a lot of emphasis on being stabbed and people getting heads chopped off and necks cut and uh, tons of like people getting shot in the head. This is a
Yeah,
very violent movie. This is very
for
violent.
sure, for sure. And
So
going back to that opening scene though, just how he shot that and how it's like, I guess it was the sun setting
yep.
and how orange and reddish it looked. It was that was crazy, and how the Harkonnens were like it almost felt like they were moonwalking up the up at what was that little rocky thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because
It almost
they had the, I don't know if they were jetpacks or whatever. They were floating, kind of like
yeah,
floating through
that
the
shit was
through the
dope.
air.
That shit was dope.
Oh yeah, yeah. And when I was talking about book translation, a lot of the scenes are taken from the book, and I'll get to the end because mostly the end is where the biggest changes from the book or the latter half, because this is all an adaptation of Frank Herbert's first book. And first off, before I get into my gripes, I do want to say um, this is the best adaptation, I think, as far as an adaptation from the novel to the screen that you're ever going to get. Because while I do have issues with some of the changes, and I do like some changes he made, and some kind of ruin a couple of things, or they might be. I'll get there when I explain it because it's hard to explain. There's certain key things that are explained, certain key groups that are introduced that aren't in this movie and that make more sense to how the ending plays out. So I'm very curious if he's going to bring the group in, or if it's going to be or if he's going to do something different. But I will say the changes as far as adaptation goes, if you're going to adapt something, I think he has done the best adaptation I've seen in years. Because a lot of I mean, there was a 1984 movie, and people hold it up into high regard. And I just got a hot take, and I'm going to say, I do not particularly like Doom 1984. Is it book accurate up to a point?
Shit's hilarious.
but but I think that a lot of people's love for that is more nostalgia based than it is based on the quality of the film. And don't get me wrong, I like David Lynch. I love Twin Peaks. I like a lot of his movies. I just think he didn't have the technology, and he didn't have the runtime to do everything he wanted to do. Where Denis Villeneuve has the runtime, he has the technology, he has the blessing of the studio, and it's a little bit easier for him to put in everything he wanted to put in. Um, and I do have an issue with the fade scene. We'll get to that in a bit. But so we're going through the desert, meets the Fremen people. there was a bit of an issue, and I don't know if this bugged you, but the love story between Paul and Zoe Saldana. So finally they meet up. I am 50-50 on this.
You mean
I
Zendaya?
yeah, Zendaya. Yeah. Uh, I am 50-50 on this. Don't get me wrong, I think it's acted great. I think they have good chemistry. Where my issue is that plot feels a little bit rushed. I don't know how you felt about it. I felt like with as much time as they get, I didn't see like the up and down of them. Like the whole falling in love part kind of came really quickly. Like the ending, I thought was done, and I do like the change because that character has changed from the book. If you guys don't know, in the Dune book, she's more of a concubine to Paul, because in this world, uh, and the whole end scene plays out with him getting together with the daughter of Christopher Walken there, but she's more of a concubine and doesn't really put up an issue with that. So I don't mind the modern spin on it because I always thought that was kind of weird. Like, how are you going to be okay with marrying another woman? Because yeah, that shit was stone cold.
Yeah, but I
But
didn't have a problem with the relationship because it made sense. Because if you like I said, like when you rewatch it, you'll understand. Like, yeah, it looks like it seems rushed, but like months are kind of going by. Yeah, like they're going like through different kind of like, you know what I'm saying, without saying like, oh, it's 2 weeks later, month later, or this time period later. Because like, I look at it like from Jessica's standpoint because from the beginning of the movie, her stomach's not as big, but then like we get to another point, it's definitely been some months to go by because her stomach's bigger now and stuff like and it's weird how they're cutting it. I can understand that being an issue, but I didn't really have a problem with the whole relationship between Paul and Shawnee and stuff like that.
I mean, and once again, I'm nitpicking Perp because I don't want
Yeah.
it to seem like I'm like overhype it or that I can't be fair. There are things that even now watching it a second and even third time, uh, the cut. It's funny you bring that up. The cut feels like there's more cut out in their romance in particular to kind of flesh it out just a bit.
Mhm.
And I mean, like I said, this is a small nitpick for me. Uh, I'm not watching Dude for the fucking love story,
Exactly.
obviously.
You know, because
I
that could take people out of the movie if you like focus way too much on it.
will
So
have a
I
Star
feel
Wars
like
situation. Episode
yeah,
one.
I feel like the way that he shot it in this, he just got to the point, and you just saw that over time, like she started to like come around to him, and they're getting closer and closer until they're sitting there together in the sand and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah, that might change Anakin's perspective. Obviously, the sand is cool. We'll get to that. But let's get to the MVP. And I want to say, man, I got to say, my favorite actor in this film would have to be Javier Bardem. Uh, it just to me crushes it and is got to be the best hype man that has
yeah,
ever
the
been.
still guard memes are hilarious right now.
Dude, Stilgar. All right, if there is a man like, bro, if I'm gonna take over the world, I want a man like Stilgar. Everything Paul says, he literally turns it into a thing to hype him up. Like when he picks the Mohadim, which is like a desert rat, right?
Yeah,
Basically, or a mouse. And people are like, "Oh, you want to be like a mouse? That's kind of stupid. Like, why is he picking a mouse?" And he's like, "No, no, no. The mouse is wise. It sees all.
it makes its
It's a
own water,
strong name."
and that goes back to I caught that connection from part two to part one because part one you saw the desert mouse make his own like moisture and stuff. That's how you stay hydrated and stuff. That's what he's talking about. He's like the mouse makes its own water, makes its own way and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's where I agree with that. And I even said before you came on, the mark of a good movie, because I do think this is going to be a trilogy. Right now, I pulled the box office up for this right now. It's got 183 million debut weekend, and is it expected to hit 200 million by like Monday? So I gotta recheck the box office stats at the end of the week, but
I think
I'm
it
pretty
already
sure it's a.
crossed. I think it already crossed 200. Like
I'm gonna
worldwide
say I
already.
think it did cross 200 million. I haven't checked Box Office Mojo, but so I think it's highly likely that this is gonna be a trilogy. So I'm just gonna talk in that sense, and I'd say that this movie here, like you said, and especially with Javier Bardem's character and the way they connect things that Paul does. Um, I think that this does what a trilogy should do in the middle part, Star Wars sequel. Um, this middle part, when you watch it, makes part one better because it does draw and there's a lot of callbacks from the first part, and even how he wins in the end, and we'll get to that scene when we get to it, was a vision he had in part one. Because I went back through it, I watched it again before I saw part two, and I go, "Oh shit, I forgot about that," because it's been what, like a 2 3 years in between these films, so it's hard to keep track of everything that they had laid out. But you could see the foundations, and a lot of stuff that was set up in part one was paid off directly in part two. I do agree this does feel like one movie that was split into two, and my issue with the first part was how they broke off the ending. But then seeing this, also, I think the continuation of that was pretty good because this feels like this back half got a lot of the action and the front half was all of the setup. If you watch this movie as like a complete, almost like, I don't know, 6 hours, it flows
It's like 5
beautifully.
hours, something like that.
Yeah, it'd be roughly in the 5 hour mark. It flows really good. And I think that was the thing that got me about this. So they go to the Fremen. They do all of that. I will address a change from the book to this that I think is excellent. And there was something that was done in the '84 movie that annoyed the shit out of me. Uh, in and Hopefully, because they've changed a lot, I don't know. They might address this in Messiah, but the thing that annoyed me is that Dune goes into very weird places. And I respect Frank Herbert's work and what he did, but he goes into very fucking strange places, especially in God King and in Children of Dune and um, the rest of the books. There's like 6 or 7 of them. He goes into some very strange places. Um, I never liked the daughter. Essentially, is born between Dune and Dune Messiah, and she's a child that talks like an adult. And they do this in the 1984 movie, and I just don't think it works. I like the vision where
Yeah,
she's kind of aged up.
yeah, I know about that change, and I'm cool with that because it's just like when you get to Messiah, like that's when you can introduce her or something like that, and it's gonna be some time, and like
And
we're
like
not
I
gonna
said,
get that.
this is spoilers. I'm just gonna say I think Anna Taylor Joy as the sister is a perfect fucking casting because of reading the book. Um, the In the book, the daughter has very soft kind of features and things like that. I just think Anna Taylor Joy's casting as Paul's sister is a perfect fucking casting. I cannot wait to see that. Um, because like wow, just great stuff. So we have the mother. She becomes a elder in this one. I believe
Reverend Mother.
the Reverend Mother. And I believe the term is he drinks the worm piss. So what did you think about that? So there's a cool scene in this. They go to this temple. She has to unlock this ability. It's an ability that the Bene Gesserit have. It's a foresight, kind of like predictions and talking with ancestors and things like that, and predicting things from the past into the future. And I love how they do it in this, as opposed to having the daughter be a physical presence, having her talk to her mother in the womb. What did you think? Because that plays out in the book, and I really like her stopping and talking. Like, yeah, we got to get more people. You can kind of see the path she's going down.
Yeah, that was dope because it reminded me of AOT. A lot of this reminds me of like somewhat like AOT, just how like the founding Titans powers kind of operate and stuff. How you can see past the future, and you know what I'm saying.
Yo, Attack on Titans got wild. One day we got to do a stream on that. I gotta say, I was pretty satisfied with that.
Yeah.
Not so much with what happened to my boy, but that's just because I give him credit. They had balls with that ending. But anyways, we'll talk about that another day. But yeah, I loved AOT. Yeah, I agree. I love the fact that instead of making her physically there, she was influence her mom. Now, there's
Yeah.
this thing I wanted to dispel, Perp, and I know you're intelligent, so you picked up on this. And since the first movie, and I hate this fucking term, they tried to say that in this movie, Paul Atreides is a trope, right? The white savior trope, and I
But
don't think.
I don't see that at all. You know.
No, no. Even when you look, and Denise has done a great adaptation, which means he's hey, Paul. And here's a major spoiler, folks. This is not going to end well for Paul. I've even seen people hyping up Paul, people who have a crush on him, like, oh, I love him. And that's the
No,
point of
he's definitely the villain. I see that. Like that's why I said like I make that comparison and like to him and Aaron. Like Aaron went down a similar path. Like he saw his family member die. You know, so, well, even though Paul didn't see his father die, but at the same time, he lost a family member. I'm gonna get my revenge. I'm gonna use my power to, you know what I'm saying, get what I want,
uh,
essentially.
his is a little bit different, and I'll tell you how in a second. But yeah, I agree. It's very similar in the sense of how they do it. And I almost want to say AOT might have been inspired by Dune because Dune came out in '65. So I could see like you could see where a lot of like Star Wars and things like that may have been
Yeah,
inspired by this story itself and the
for
way he
sure.
wrote these characters. What up, Stone Cold? He says, "What up, Zod? What up, Perp?"
What up? What up? Yeah,
So
it's just a story. Like he's just more of an anti-hero. That's all. Like you know what I'm saying. And I've always said that like we need more of that. You know, like I'm so sick and tired of just always seeing the goody two shoe here. Like let the hero be can possibly be the hero and the villain, or you know what I'm saying, like or dabble in both. You know what I'm saying?
the hero to me it's not a hero per se, it's a person, right? It's complex, and Frank Herbert modeled Paul out of a theory, and this came from like the 60s and 70s, right? You had Richard Nixon and stuff like that, and I was listening to quotes from Frank Herbert, and he said the whole point of the story is the faith that we put in our leaders, and the uh, the dogmatic view of religious figures, right? Like people that other people are willing to follow, whether the path is right or wrong. The point of Paul Atreides is that yes, on some level, he's not completely evil, but a lot of his motives are built and based in revenge. In this movie, he is straight up using the Fremen people to enact revenge on uh, the Harkonnen um, for killing his father and wiping out House Atreides. And everything he does is to further that end. And I think by the end of this movie, he really leans hard into that every move he's making is to wipe out his enemies. And then we'll talk about when he himself does the worm piss thing, because then that opens up another thing I want to bring up, which is directly from the book. But the beginning of it is sort of him just getting revenge, but then there's also his foresight. And he even says he's seen different paths, right? But I kind of think of it like Doctor Strange, there's multiple paths, and he knows he's going to cause. In the book, they call it a jihad, which is what it is. But he's going to cause people to kill in his name, and everything he's doing is in that one hope that he's not going to lead into that future. It's like Darth Vader knowing he's going to become Darth Vader. He knows he's going to go down that path, and he realizes he has to go down that path to not only free these people, but bring stability to the galaxy. And so we're really witnessing, we're not witnessing a savior. We're witnessing the rise of, in a sense, uh, almost a dictator, really, a charismatic leader, whatever you want to call him. He is not the hero. in his own story, he's a hero. In his mind, he's trying to do heroic things, but his actions scream something very different. And he is leading these people in a war where we've seen the visions where he'll have millions, if not billions, of people are going to die because of the choices he makes. So Paul's not a savior. I find it funny, everybody. I've seen a couple of tweets. Everyone who's like, really, it's like the Daenerys thing, where everyone thought she was a hero. She was a fucking hero, and Paul is not either. She's just they're both very charismatic and likable characters, and I think that's why a lot of people will side with them. And that's the point of the book, is that these people who do horrible things, they're not inherently bad. When you enter politics and when you enter other forces at play, they're forced to do bad things in order to protect everybody else. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I thought, especially in this, they did a really good job at showing Paul sort of going into that dark place.
Yeah.
Um, so let's get to Fade. I like Fade. Thought he was really good. Let's get to the scene. Probably one of the best shot scene, black and white scene on the planet uh, of Harkonnen, their planet that they're on. Everything's in black and white, and we're introduced to the somewhat villain of the movie, Fade. What did you think of Fade? And I'll give you some thoughts. I did have a slight issue with this, I'll tell you, but what did you
I
think of that whole scene?
but before I get into my thoughts on that, I really like the black and white because I felt like that was the most interesting use of black and white, or most creative thing I've seen used with black and white, because their sun is black. So it's like that's what it just looks like during the day, or certain parts of the day where it just looks black and white. And seeing that kind of transition into color, into the black and white, like where you see the Bene Gesserit like walk
Yep.
in, they're all black, and then like their whole gown turns white and stuff. Like they did like some type of infrared shit. Like that shit was dope. That shit was fire. But I like Fade's introduction. Um, for the most part, because like I could see some people being mixed with that, and I definitely have some nitpicks with that as far as where they went with his character, but at the same time, I understand, just because that's just how Dune kind of sets things up. As far as we're talking about, like the last fight and whatnot, and I think that kind of played out how it should have played out, even though I could see people being disappointed in it, because like it just felt like he just got introduced. He should have been introduced in like part one, but I'm kind of glad he wasn't. You know, at the same time.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people. The two big fights that I heard the most complained about was Bautista's fight at the end, which I'll get to my reasonings on that. I don't necessarily have an issue. My big issue with Fade is not even introducing him in part one. I think it's fine introducing him in part two. This is really the part of the story that he has. My biggest issue is I don't think, and this is a small nitpick, it might sound stupid, but just give me your ideas. I don't think they should have drugged everyone in the arena. I think they should have let him fight out all of them to really test his skill and then have him do the same thing he did with taking the shield off. I think it kind of like he only had two scenes till you get to the ending to shine, right? Finding the thing and bombing it. And I have
Mhm.
an issue with that. But uh I think he doesn't really, because they hype him up, and they did hype him in the first movie. He was mentioned briefly.
Mhm.
And I think there's a deleted scene with him in the background as well. But I think that my biggest issue is that we're told like Fade's a badass, right? When he comes, he's gonna set stuff straight. I think that him and Paul should have had little skirmishes or maybe little meetings, a little back and forth to really build up his charisma. Or in that arena, he should have just killed all three, not drugged. And I understand that in House Harkonnen, they hold these gladiatory arenas. It's part of their lore. They do drug the prisoners because it's not really a fair fight. Um, the drugs they give them do
I,
make them stronger, but it does make them like woozy or whatever. The things they're
I,
giving them as like enhancers. So,
what I'd say about that though is it made sense because of what the scenes it sets up for the scene later when he goes to talk to the Baron, like, yo, you try to kill me or something, like, or you try to set me up, or because we've never seen nobody ever talk back to the Baron, so like, he's like, I ought to drown you in that tub, so it kind of gives him that kind of adds more to his
See, but
building up
they
his
cut
character and
out
stuff.
in the book. See, it could have been
Hmm.
even more hype because what they cut out when Fade was 16, he tried to kill the Baron. He made an attempt on his life, and the Baron was furious, but then let him live. And he said, "I have big plans for you. You're gonna succeed me if you can wait." And then that gives more context to the arena scene where he threatens him and the Baron lets him go. And that's what I mean. There's just like these little things in the book that kind of add more layers to where I feel like it does kind of rush these characters. And I can understand um, some things you have to cut out. I think it would have been cool to
I,
mention that to kind
I
of.
I would be curious to see. I don't know if they're gonna that's something new they would add, or if that's part of the book. If because we know Fade has a son now, so he's probably gonna have a son out there, so he could probably get a
Oh,
little.
oh yeah, that's in the book. I
All right,
think it comes
you
in.
don't gotta go farther than that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't. It's not in Messiah, but there is mention of it. But yeah, Fade is in a role. As a matter of fact, so the plans, and this is where I'm saying there's a lot of details, and I understand he had to cut some of this because there's too much
Mm.
time. But the original plan of the Genoites and their house was that um, Paul's mom was actually supposed to give birth to a daughter, and then the daughter was supposed to marry someone from the house of Harkonnen to then
Yeah.
produce them,
Hmm.
and that was supposed to be Fade that married whoever.
Yeah, I
Uh,
understood that.
yeah, so uh, I mean, it's pretty much implied in the movie, but that's like what you said. You really have to watch this movie a couple of times because he drops the hints so subtly, and I think that's a bit of an issue with the movie. There are hints there, but he puts
It
them
goes back to part
super
one
subtle.
because part one like explains it because the whole time he's like Paul is just he was never supposed to be born. Like,
Yeah, which adds to his mythic legend, and that also leads to the problem we have. So Paul finds out. I've heard a lot of issues with this. This was not in the book. The nukes. I'm of mixed feelings. I feel like this is a get out of jail free card because okay, and I don't know if this is gonna bring it up, but in the book, the reason why the forces that come out of space, the houses that come at the end, how they're stopped is there's a guild called the Spacers Guild. The Spacers Guild controls space travel, and nobody in space can move without their permission. And how Paul wins the battle in the book and gets them to back off is because he controls Arrakis and he controls the spice. And the spacers only care about spice because they're all addicted to it. Um, so he makes a deal with the spacer guilds, which gets everybody to back off, and that's how he wins in the book. In this, they hint to nukes. I don't know how I feel, and it really depends on how he plans to utilize this plot. So find out that
I
House
can't wait.
Atreides is. I
Can't
mean,
wait for him
yeah,
to use them shit.
I'm interested.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it. And look, I got faith because he has adapted it very well. And I said when I found parts in part one, I was like, I don't know. And then he calmed down my skepticism in this one. I was like, holy shit, okay. So I'm interested, but I think that it makes more sense for the fleets to back off because they are threatened by the people who control space travel. I don't know in a world like this where you have technology where nukes are really like threatening. Do you get what I'm saying? Like they got shields, they got stuff. I don't I get the feeling these are just nuclear weapons, and in a world that's technologically advanced where everything is shielded and things like that, how nukes pose this really big threat. Like they can bomb the planet, and sure, you could say, I'll destroy the resources.
Especially with them shields too, them shields and how like explosions just be like it just be
Yeah, they bounce off virtually. You got to hit it at least a couple of times, right?
Yeah.
before it gets volatile. So that was a plot hole I noticed. I mean,
I think
did
that
that really
more
bother
so.
you?
I think more so like it makes sense just because it's like his whole plan was to get the emperor there, make him surrender and stuff, and hopefully or him or Paul. I don't think yet that Paul told the whole plan of the emperor trying to take out the Atreides and doing all this backdoor shit.
So you think he's gonna do it like the get out of jail free is going to be him? Because remember, though, he does rage the jihad because the houses don't go with what he's saying, and the only reason why he gets the ships to back off is because of the Spacers Guild that says, "Nah, you gotta pull out." But in this one, like the planet's surrounded by the end, and they don't give a shit. He's got the Emperor is basically where we're leaving us off. So
Yeah,
I
because
mean,
his
you
whole
see where
plan,
I
his whole plan was like, all right, I'm gonna use the emperor as like kind of like this bargaining chip, and if they say no, I'm just gonna go to war with them.
war with
Because
them.
he
Yeah,
because he was hoping that like if I told him exactly what the emperor and all them shit was doing, maybe they'll what I'm saying, whoop de whoop. But nah, there's like, nah, we don't accept your ascendance and stuff like that.
and it was really because, like he said, he wants to break down the system. Everybody's scheming and stuff. His dad was a victim of all these schemes and backdoor deals, and this house is scheming with this house to get this. So he's trying to break that system, and so he offers them this chance. And so we can probably assume that Doom Messiah is going to be him going to war with the houses. It's just where they leave it in this particular scenario. It's really weird to me because essentially all of the houses are above Arrakis. They could wipe it out if they want to. Now, they could go two ways. They could say maybe they don't want to wipe it out because everybody uses spice. So
But he also said he got those nukes, and he's not gonna hesitate to use them too. So
but like that brings me back to my other point though. Uh the nukes, if he launches them, right?
they're all
How many
gone.
ships really are you gonna take out before they all start bombarding you? That's what I kept on thinking. Like you're talking about in this world, perp, there's a bunch of houses. Okay, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's like 9, 10 houses in this galaxy. All right. So you got all of them ships above your head, and like, yeah, maybe you take out one or two of them,
No, but
maybe three.
they had a lot of those nukes though. That's what I'm saying. Like they could have easily taken them out, and they have probably their leaders and stuff there. So they're probably their whole guard is probably all down and stuff like that. But you
I mean,
know,
that's a good point. If you have a ship with the guard there and the people who are on the hair and the message, it's possible. It's just like I said, though, it's a nitpick. It's just like, and I'm coming from the perspective of how the book goes.
yeah.
That's why I wanted to talk to you about this because it's cool to hear somebody who doesn't know the lore because you can hit it from a different point. Because I'm just thinking like I know how big the houses are, the different fleets and things. So to me, it's just like okay, yeah, you have the nuclear option, but if they decide to rain down all of their weapons down on you,
But at the same time, like if they ran down on it, then what I'm saying, where you gonna get your spice from? You know what I'm
that's
saying?
what I was thinking. I was thinking
They're
maybe
not
he
gonna they're
plays
not
up
gonna
that chip.
attack They're not gonna completely blow up Arrakis like that. But like Paul said, like yeah, I'll blow this shit up.
Well, Paul goes dark. We're gonna hit that in a second. Spoiler Kings, what's up? Good to see you
Well,
on
spoiler
here. He
king.
says, and it's spoilers, so it fits. He says, "What's up, Zod? What's up, Hurt?" Okay, good. See, this is why I wanted to talk to you because, like I said, and I think this is some of the thing I did notice this from people who like the novel, right? They did point out these points where there's kind of this fall, like, okay, because I'll be honest with you, I don't like Dune Messiah the book. I like the ending because it makes sense, and I'm not going to say the ending just in case they keep it consistent, which I think they will. But I do have a lot of issues with Dune Messiah in particular. So I like that he made changes that forces him to kind of change the trajectory of that book because to me, out of all the books, that's the weakest. of all 6 or 7 books. So I don't mind changes as far as it goes, but 2, I don't want to end up having to do mental gymnastics to try to justify. But now that you laid it out to me like that, that does make sense because you're right. They aren't they if anything, they'll send ground forces, but still, dude, I mean, what? They do have a lot of Fremen,
Al-
but you're talking about that's a
Also,
lot of
I
ships.
feel like it makes sense. Like when we go back and look at this, it makes more sense for you to get really crazy with your third film because you've built it up. Like the first one's very like world building. Second one, we get into the conclusion and him wrapping up the whole stuff with the Harkonnens and stuff like that, and going into the to pretty much what is essentially the final act. You know what I'm saying? And you know, because who's to say we're gonna get those other children of Dune and stuff like that? That's probably not gonna come for another like 10, 15 years out the way. With like what I'm saying,
Dude,
but
I'm gonna be fucking dead before you're gonna have to do the review on that one. I ain't gonna be alive for Children of Dune. And
Cause like I said, when Denny was like, yeah, I want to take some time off. I got like 4 other projects in the work. I was like, yeah, we're not seeing Doom Messiah for at least 5 years, and we're not even promised that, so we don't even know how long it's gonna be before we get that.
he did say though he's got the script done. So
Yeah,
I think, and Warner Bros is gonna, they're gonna offer that man an obscene
2020,
amount of money.
2028, 2029 feels more realistic around that time, like
I
4 or
agree with
5 years.
you. And hey, we waited for what 2-3 years for this. I'll fucking wait for Doom Messiah. He says, "Who controls the spice, the universe, and the ability to destroy something is true power over it." That's in the movie. Kind of makes sense together. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I do agree. And he
this
said,
little quotes at the beginning.
Zod. Some didn't like second book. Denise changes seem to make it different and hopefully better. I thank you, Spoiler King. I do agree. Like, I am not a fan of the second book. Um, I think it's the weakest. They do get cool because he goes in fucking crazy directions. Like, I'd love to see Children of Dune and God King Emperor, where you have Leto the Second, who's Paul's son, and he becomes a fucking sandworm. And I'm saying this now because if we're gonna get it, like you said, it'll be 10 years, so you guys won't even remember these spoilers. But fuck me, like Paul's son becomes a fucking sandworm, and he's got them all like on him, and he makes this plan for world peace where he controls all the factions. Like, it gets fucking wild, bro. It gets
I
crazy.
bet, and I'm all for it because like even though how long Dune's been around, it feels familiar, but it's still new at the same time for me, and I like that, and it's more so everything that I wanted out of Star Wars. I was like, yeah, like Star Wars needs to be dark, man. Like we need to be in a war. Like I need to feel that shit. Like feel that like there's some nasty shit going on just in different parts of the galaxy. I don't care about all these stupid. And you know what? The most interesting thing to me about Dune that separates itself from a lot of different sci-fi is that there's no computers and stuff like that.
Oh,
And I find that fascinating.
uh, there is. So when Frank Herbert did the Dunes, he passed away unfortunately before he could finish the whole
Mhm.
story. And we're talking, he was 6 or 7 books in, and his son kind of picked it up. I have mixed issues about his son's books. I don't think they're as bad, but the computers do play a role, and you do see why. And this is my other thing. So
Mhm.
uh, there is a group. I forget their name, but their group that does calculations. Okay, and they replace computers essentially. They're like the thinkers. They don't
Yeah,
mention them.
we saw the one dude that was
They showed
Leto.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah, but they didn't
human
really.
computers.
Yeah, they didn't highlight it a lot. I mean, they did show the advisor, I believe, in Doom One, and their brains are trained like computers, right? And they didn't mention this, but Paul has that ability, which is why some people might think when you're watching this movie, how is he planning shit out? Not only does he have the power of foresight, but he's what are they called? Net Maha something. I forget the name of the group, but they have the ability to think of strategies super quick and different possibilities.
Yeah,
and Paul's in that group. So he's a strategist. He can foresee the future.
he's Ichigo.
Yeah, he's got tons of different things. So um yeah, so we talked about Paul's character. Let's get into uh the final fight between Paul and Fade. Dude, fucking love that fight. Dude, fucking love it. Let me tell you the one thing I love.
Mm,
And look, you got Hans Zimmer's music, right? Hans Zimmer's the fucking man. He's the maestro. But the best thing they do in this movie that really elevates it is when they go silent and you
yeah,
just hear the sound effects between Paul and Faye fighting. So what'd you think of that, Ed? I fucking that's
I
probably
think
my
it's
favorite scene
dope.
in the whole
That
movie.
that's another thing that like I like about Dune that sets itself apart from other things because it's like they don't have drawn out fights. Their fights end very quickly. Like
That one
and
was a little bit longer though.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
like
but
we'll
like
talk about
you
Bautista,
know,
but that
but
one
it was
was
still
tense.
but it was still quick, you know, and I liked it. It was like you got two people at the peak of their, you know what I'm saying? They've all had the best training, you know what I'm saying? So it's just gonna go down to whoever's the best, like Gurney said in the part one, whoever has the slow blade wins, you know what I'm saying? The slow blade penetrates the shield or you know what I'm saying, even though they didn't have a shield in the stone, but they still that was just a really great back and forth and stuff and whatnot. It was a great callback to part one and whatnot.
And
So
in part one, remember, and I had to rewatch, like you said, rewatching part one made part two better. I had to rewatch. I forgot he predicted how that fight was going to end, but he predicted in part one. And there's multiple lines that make a reference, and Gurney says it too. He says, "You got my shoulder," but then remember he had him on the
yeah,
side with his blade. And Paul used that trick on Fade at the end, and he let him pierce his shoulder, and he got him in the side
yeah,
because of the vision, because he saw Fade killing him. So instead, he shifted over and he took the blade in the shoulder, and he got Fade in the side. And I think that one enhances, and it's a cool callback to the first movie, but also very true to like you said. I'm a martial artist. You guys all know if you follow my channel. Um, in a real fight or in tournaments I've been in, right? I am a second degree black belt. I fight with black belts. I'll tell you something. Our matches are very quick. We go on a point system, right? You it reminded me of being in a fight when I am doing black belt versus black belt, because when you're at that skill level, it's not going to be you're going to necessarily win off of skill alone. Some of it's luck. Like someone slips in a hit, someone gets a shot, you're just not quick enough. You know what I mean? So I think the fights in this are super realistic, because in real life, if you have two masters at their craft, it's not gonna be, oh, he's gonna win because he's the fucking hero. You're talking about fighting with like blades. Like, you mess up once, you move the wrong way, it's done. That's a wrap. Uh, and I heard a lot of people bitch about this. What did you think about Batista's death at the end? Because I heard a lot of
I'm fine
complaints.
with it because like Batista was always kind of set up like a dumb like muscle headed character. It showed in the first one, like how like reckless he was. Even in this movie, he was reckless when he went to go attack the Fremen and whatnot in their base, and then he had to kind of retreat and stuff. Like you shouldn't have just even done that in the first place because he blew up he ended up or no, that was Fade that did that, but he ended up acting irrationally and stuff. He's always acting irrational, and it just made sense. Like you could have had a little bit more back and forth, but it's better to just get his character out the way because at that point, it's like the Harkonnens are all like falling. They're all just a mess at this point.
And I agree. Like, I hate that complaint because, look, Revan and you're talking about Gurney, who is trained Paul Atreides. He's a master at his craft. He trained. I think it was said like the only person who could rival his skill, at least in the book, it says is Duncan Idaho. Which, bro, if they go beyond dude, Duncan comes back. I would love to see that. But that's not in Messiah. It's
But
like
also,
later.
also another thing, like I don't like when you see Batista move, it don't seem like he can move like that. Like he's not as his character is not supposed to be as agile or something like that. He couldn't. Gurney wouldn't have been able to do that to somebody like Fade
No,
and stuff like
Fade was
Fade would have
built for
killed him.
speed.
Yeah, Fade would have killed him.
Fade was built for speed, and I think that shows the difference because Batiste is very powerful, and even his weapon, he had that like whip thing or whatever.
Yeah,
I
which did
would have.
nothing. Like, why would you try to hit him with a whip? That's where you fucked up. Don't be mad at that. Like, don't. If anything, you should be mad at like, why would you try to just hit the first thing that comes to mind? I'm gonna hit him with a whip. Like, he's coming at you slow. Like he can't like just grab that shit, bring you in, and just. Yeah, that's how
Yeah,
you end up dead, dummy.
yeah, like I 100% agree. I hated that because I was seeing a lot of that. Like, they hyped up Batista, and I get it. Batista gave him the
When did
scar,
they
so they
hype
didn't.
up Batista? Like they always made him look. They always showed him like they always let you know his character is dumb. Like he's not. He's reckless. He's dumb and he's reckless. Like
Yeah, and I
even when he started a little tantrum in the first movie, he's like, "How could you let this Duke?" And he was like he doesn't understand the politics of things. Like he's just a warrior. Like he's just a like you know what I'm saying. He's just a pawn.
you said it best. He's a pawn. He's the guy you send out when you want to get shit done. Like, yeah, he's a powerhouse. He's led battles. He led the fall of Arrakis. But at the end of the day, Fade is everything he's not. Fade is a strategist. He understands tactics. He's got the speed and power. And like, yeah, I get it. And I think a lot of that too is House Harkonnen kind of engineered their own downfall because you could tell where the Baron was kind of pitting his two sons against each other there. And
And they
Batista
just
was,
kind of set it up perfectly, like because like when you have Shawnee like kind of telling you who the Harkonnens are, and they just gotten to a point where they just hit a peak in wealth, and you know what I'm saying they just become reckless. They just become too comfortable and stuff like that. They just rule with an iron fist, and you know what I'm saying. It's just it, it's like you said, like it just their downfall was just inevitable at that point. So
yeah, their downfall was always kind of, and that's another point that Frank Herbert hits in his books, which I think Denis Villeneuve shows very well in these movies, is that the Harkonnens are built up as this big and powerful force, but in all actuality, they fall to the same kind of traps that all of these powerful people fall for.
even the Atreides, their fall is inevitable too. As soon as Leto put his stamp on that thing, when he said so it's done, it's done. You know,
And he knew, remember in
yeah.
the first movie, when you
hmm
watch, he knew it was a trap.
He broke it
Fate,
down to Paul. He's like, yo, he set this up so like me, us and the Harkonnens can go to war, so it weakens both houses. Said it right from the jump. Like,
if anything, Christopher Walken's character is the
hmm
one who's the most clever. But let's talk about that downfall. So let's talk about the biggest change. And I don't have a problem. I'm kind of curious to see. So in the books, Shane kind of goes with Paul's decision and becomes his side piece. And look, I'm not being crude here. That's the way the galaxy works. In the book, Chani is his side piece that he wants to have kids with. He doesn't give a fuck about the Emperor's daughter. As a matter of fact, he refuses to sleep with Lady Jessica. Um, or not Lady Jessica. What's that girl's name? I was looking at the wrong one.
that's a mom. Like, right.
That's the mom. That's yeah, yeah. Not Lady Jessica. Oh shit. Sorry about that, folks. That
It's
was
the
weird.
princess. The princess.
Princess. Fuck. I forget. Princess. God.
Princess Few. Oh.
Princess Arloon. Arloon. Princess Arloon. Uh, he. So he does a power play here, which is quite clever. Princess Alun is the daughter of the emperor, so to make his reign legitimate, and he says to him basically like to Sadim the Fourth, he says, "Look, I could kill you, or we could do it like this because they did the little death battle thing, and he won. So by rights, at least in Arrakis rules, he can. It's basically like Game of Thrones, right? That you have a fighter
Yeah.
step in, and whoever wins, the other person is put to death. And he says he's not going to kill him because the princess basically is like, no, there's been enough death, blah blah blah. And she says, so he says, okay, I'll take your daughter's hand and legitimize my rise as the new emperor. And in return, he lets him live. Um, and this is some cold shit. And I like this change because look, Perp, how many women, and I heard this complaint, but look, how many women you slept with her? They like, look, they don't show it, but they heavily apply. Like, Paul slept with Chani, right?
And who's to say
And
she's not pregnant? You know
and
what I'm
who's
saying?
they could have changed that, but she could see to try it later. But anyways, the whole point is, right? You slept with this woman, and then in front of her people, you gonna go and take another girl
Yeah,
as
that's
your
that water
wife.
of life. That's that water of life, man. That's that truth serum. I think it's like some type of alcohol, some moonshine, because you know what I'm saying. They say alcohol is the truth serum. So like once he drank that shit, he started to turn up and started letting it be known. Like, but I really like that scene because like even though it's a huge power play, but it also kind of ends the movie in a dark way with their relationship at least. You know what I'm saying? So
I'm going to side with you on this. I 100% love this change. Bro, that look. I think Zoe Zendaya is a hit or miss actress. I thought she was great on Euphoria. I thought in Spider Man she was okay. Like, but this movie here, bro,
much better.
the acting she puts in, that look she fucking gives him when all of those people are around, bro. That reminded me of my girl. Like when your girl's pissed off at you and she shoots that look of like daggers into your fucking soul, bro. She was she was pissed. She was pissed. That to me, just the acting in that scene, 10 out of 10, bro. I love that scene. It shows Paul's change. He's fully embraced. Another great scene, and this is just a talking moment. I love when he goes into that hall and he says that he's both uh, Paul of House of Atreides and the Mahuladim. Like he claims both titles. What do you think about that? And he tells that person to shut up.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, that was dope. That goes back to the first one too. That goes back to the first movie again. So
Yeah, because he was told to shut up before, and then he goes in that how, dude. Timothée Chalamet's acting in this, I would say, is way better than the first movie. Way better. I don't know about how you feel, but bro, the range he hits in this movie, top notch.
it was good, really good. I
Oh,
always
oh
liked
yeah.
Timothy, even like in Wonka and stuff. I thought he was really dope. Like he definitely has range. Like he can play different characters. So
Uh, and dude, let's another MVP, Austin Butler. Dude, you go from Elvis to this. Holy shit, does that dude got range?
yeah, and then he's gonna
Um,
be in that with bike riders movie and stuff. So he's gonna play a completely different character. Probably more of like a Sons of Anarchy character. So
So yeah, I mean, we just got great acting.
yeah,
Austin Butler puts in work. I don't honestly, I don't think there's. I don't know about you. I can't pick out a really weak performance in this movie. Everybody,
yeah, all
d-
strong.
they're all strong performances. Everyone's convincing. Everybody's good. Uh, but yeah, so to kind of start to put a close, because I mean, how about okay? I'll go over one or two more scenes, and then a little bit of what happens in the Messiah to see the predictions that I want, and then we'll wrap this up. But let's talk about the other battle we never got to, and this is the one my daughter was waiting for because my daughter is an awesome kid. So the whole movie she was waiting for sandworms. So there's a couple of scenes I want to highlight. First, when Paul first rides the biggest sandworm, dude, awesome fucking scene.
Yeah, that was great. That's another one of those scenes that you have to watch that on IMAX or Dolby because it's like that's just the epic ass scene, and the fact that that's like a practical scene that they made and stuff like that, fire.
Oh yeah, that was practical effects, right?
Yeah,
A
with
bit
that
of
the whole
CGI, but
set,
most of it.
everything with the sandworm and stuff, like how like that's the whole like rig that they had to make and stuff like that.
Dude, yeah, I was gonna say like the practical effects and then layered because how they choose to use the CGI is they more layer certain things or they
Yeah,
fill in certain things as opposed to full CGI.
yeah,
And dude, these movies are gonna hold up tremendously 5, 10 years from now. These movies are still gonna look clean.
right.
Um, so yeah, he rides the sandworm, but let's talk about the final battle we didn't talk about. So he does launch the nukes. He launches the nukes behind.
It was only three of them. I think it was only three, like three or two. Yeah, I think it was like three of them. If I'm not
It was
mistaken.
three of them
Yeah,
because he launches them to the sandstorm to create more of a thing, and it also drops the shield for the Emperor so he can't escape. And then we see three fucking sandworms. Dude, this is another great scene that I love. Like that whole
not
thing.
just three, not just three sandworms, but three sandworms that has like an army of Fremen riding it. Like that shit was fucking dope.
Dude, that shit was scary as could you
That shit
just
was fucking
picture
dope.
you're an army, right? And this is we're talking the Emperor's Guard is like the best fighting force in the universe. They are top tier. Only House Atreides could really come close. That's why the Emperor wanted to take them out. Their fighting force is the only one that can come close to the Emperor's fighting force. And you see three fucking massive sandworms come out of this fucking storm with all of these fucking Fremen on their back. There's the the Fremen come out of the fucking sand and start fighting, bro. The people got wiped out. And I love how they show that scene with Paul walking, and you just see the silhouette and of his like cloak and like all the sand and shit behind him.
Yeah.
Like that shit was crazy. I was like in disbelief. That's probably my second favorite scene. Uh, I forgot to ask you, what is your favorite scene besides the ones probably we all highlighted here?
Besides like the Austin Butler joint and the Fate Rotha final scene, final fight, and even the final battle with the sandworms. I like when Shawnee had the rocket launcher hit the old boy with the rocket launcher and took out the helicopter. That was a fire ass scene.
Bro, I have waited for years, right? Because you think that he's gonna go and save her or whatever, but she says, "No, fuck it, I have a rocket." Dude, that dude got that dude got fucked up.
And then she lets off this little like laugh or chuckle. That shit was funny. And then
Yeah, and as she said, reload. I was like, bro, you don't see that in movies. I think that scene hits hard because they always have the whole "there's only one rocket. We gotta hit this thing, right?" So then somebody else comes and saves her. But she's like, "No, we got plenty of
and
rockets."
and, and and that goes to my point. Like I feel like this is Zendaya's best role because like you could see her like literally just having fun in certain scenes, where she's having fun and when she feels sad, and she's gotten a lot more things to kind of work with and not have to just play that like kind of one note character that she normally plays.
And I gotta say, the best I've seen her in is Euphoria. Um, I mean, the show goes out of hell, but her acting is stellar. And when I seen her in that, I kind of figured she was going to do a lot of other different things because you could really see the range that she can pull off. especially with a character that she plays in that show, which is inherently very unlikable. Not because of how they build it, it's just because she's a drug addict, and that's the kind of show that it's built on. But off of that performance, like I seen shades of that kind of acting in this movie where she's having fun, she's really into this role. And you could see, I would say everybody is really giving it 110% in this film. Everybody. Now, the only issue I have is Christopher Walken. Um, I gotta be honest with you, and I love Christopher Walken, but I'd say the weakest in this movie is his role. Like he just kind of feels like he's playing Christopher Walken here. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't mind Christopher
I feel
Walken,
like
but
it works for his character. Like everybody kind of works. Like it's just it's like he made that mistake. Well, even though he was manipulated by the Bene Gesserit, like his Bene Gesserit and stuff like that, into taking out House Atreides. That was the start of his downfall. Once he made that decision. So it's like I think he played that role all right. But if people want to say that was like the weakest one, I'm not. I wouldn't disagree or what I'm saying. I wouldn't fight
yeah,
that.
and it comes back to that. There's not really much. He doesn't have a very big role, so I don't think you can really see. It's not really flexing his talents. We all know
He
Christopher
was losing
Walken.
he was losing grip of his power anyways. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, when we come into this, the Emperor is really making a desperate play. He's making a lot of mistakes, especially at the ending. Like when he gets that seal, like that's so obviously a trap. So you
mhm.
could kind of see where he's starting to slip up a little bit. Like you could go to a planet yourself, you know what I mean? That's a
Mhm.
huge mistake because he left himself exposed
Yeah,
and
he
he
had
was
no
too
choice.
confident.
I think he had like when he dropped the note. He's like, yeah, I have no choice but to what I'm saying,
Yeah,
no
and
choice but
even
to
if he
face this.
had no choice, he put himself in that position.
Right.
He allowed himself to be exposed like that. So you can kind of see where all of these houses that set up this main story, they have put themselves in the position to where they're going to fall. And that's the point because Paul wants to break the system in general. He blames the system especially when he gets the visions and he sees the way the universe is, right? His goal for starting this is because the Benny Jenner, fuck, I fucked up the last name, but you know what I mean. Those chicks, everybody's got their own plans. Everybody's scheming, and one crew is scheming with another, which is leading to this, and he wants to just destroy all of that because it's all part of the reason why his father was killed, and it'll eventually lead to the downfall of everyone. So uh, we got the main scenes out of the way. You got a good gist of that. Let's go to some final predictions, and I could say some stuff that's in besides some things I'd like to see. But what are your
No
hopes?
sport.
And
No spoilers for Messiah.
I mean, with the way they've made the changes, like for instance, in the books, in Messiah is when that the battle from Dune happens, and it wasn't Paul that kills the Baron; it was actually Paul's sister, and she
Yeah,
says
isn't
the
that how
line that Paul says.
the '80s movie ends?
Yeah, that that was pretty faithful, even though once again I'll say it's shit. But the sister winds up stabbing him and saying the line like "Hello, Uncle," and she's like, "I'm sorry, but this is my brother's will, and he's the one who has the sight." They kind of use the line, but they paraphrase it because there's a big long monologue that she says where
Mm.
she basically says she's the one who kills him, and that actually leads to uh, the Children of Dune, where she gets possessed by the Baron. But that's like book 4 or 5, so I don't know if they'll bring that in. But I was just saying she's got foresight because of the juice her mother took, so she can see the future as well. But because she was so young, she gets possessed by the ancestor of the Baron because of the relation. So, yeah, shit, like I said, shit gets fucking wild in the books. But yeah, so once again, they kind of give Paul that, which I'm fine with because I think it feels more right that Paul gets the kill as opposed to his sister. I never really vibed with that in the book because it's like, yeah, I get it. The sister's related, but I think that it hits better with Paul doing the murder because it was his dad. That's the whole point of him doing this. So I'm fine with that change. Long story short, what are you hoping to see in the third movie? We'll get hopefully by
I just
2029.
want to see the Holy War. You know what I'm saying? We're in the third act, so I want to see the Holy War, and I feel like that's how the movie should kind of start off. You know what I'm saying? We should see like just like kind of like how each movie is like kind of like a recap or somebody's narrating. Where we got Paul narrating this time, saying like just catching you up what happened over the years. Be like, oh, we went to war X amount of years, blah 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 blah. And just things got like it's just like kind of like a log or something like that. I think that'd be pretty cool. And we just kind of get right into this holy war and stuff like that.
Um, what are your feelings about maybe would you like to see it R rated to really get in there, or do you think that
Make a
they could do?
PG-13 and an R-rated version, like for streaming and Blu-ray and stuff like that for the 4K.
Because I'll tell you, I don't have a problem with PG-13. There's like a myth that they can't do a lot. You could do violence in PG-13. It's more the swearing and the sex and stuff that they really like. You can't go brutally violent,
Yeah,
but I've seen a lot of violent shit in PG-13 movies. I think, especially with the way that he shoots it, I think you could do a PG-13 movie and it'll work as well. But I would like to see an R-rated cut, like just brutal, because we're talking about this is a holy war, this is a jihad. He's exterminating everybody. We need to see that. And in Messiah, a lot of shit happens that it gets pretty brutal because like you said, we're in the war. So there's certain scenes in it that I don't know how they do it with a PG-13 rating. There's a lot of and plus two with the politics. There's a couple of scenes in particular where it's like, "Oh, that'll hit close to home." Keep in mind too, this book was made in like 65. So this
I
isn't
b- I
like a
believe I believe it because it's just weird when we get the kind of stories that like oddly just reflect what's going on now and stuff. It's kind of eerie. And it's just like this was written X amount of years ago.
Yeah, dude, Frank Herbert predicted a lot of shit because this deals with like religion, politics and religion mixing, uh, giving leaders too much power, having too much faith in your government was, and he said, putting it's not don't put faith in your leaders, but having too much faith, almost fanatical, is a dangerous thing. And we see a lot of that now. And I
Yeah,
think that's another reason why this movie hits with a lot of people. The themes that are in this movie, and he doesn't treat his audience like idiots. We talk about this all the time, and I think that's a lot of problem that like Disney and other companies have. They're they're too straightforward, but this movie is very subtle. You got to watch it 2 or 3 times to pick up what he's putting in the film, but it's all there. The last aspect I wanted to talk about because I did hear it, and there's a couple of idiots out there. Uh, Perp, do you think this movie is woke? I can't believe it.
no,
No, I don't know if you've heard this argument.
but you
Eh,
will
eh,
become woke if you drink the water of life for sure.
oh yeah, that's the definition of woke that people seem to be confused about. Like you will you will become woke if you drink the worm piss. But anyways, uh, I mean, there's not really much to say. It's a great movie. We were super hyped about it. Hopefully, we
I
get.
might go see it again right now. So
Oh, sweet, sweet. Yeah, I'm gonna go see it again probably this Sunday. I'm taking Bitchy to see it. Uh, get her on that Dune hype train, boost up them sales. I'll be honest with you, dude. This is the first movie I actually paid full ticket price. I'm supporting the film. I'm not gonna cheap out, and I got passes where I see it for $2, but I'm doing full price. So all in all, we really like this film. I do believe there's some people who do overhype, um, but I do think there's something to be said about a movie that's just good
It's a quality
and
movie.
a quality movie. Like you could say like Mario Bros or things like that is hyped, It's a good movie. I liked it, but it was overhyped. There's a lot of things that's overhyped. I think this comes down to just a quality film that's being made, a theater experience. Go check it out in IMAX. And more importantly, go check out my man Perp. Perp just killing it. Any kind of reviews, and especially I watch this man's channel for his horror reviews. He keeps me up on all the latest horror movies. And Perp knows he's been rolling with me for a while. I'm a huge horror fan. Perp, what videos are you dropping? And you got any horror recommendations for the horror fans out there who watch my
Speaking of
channel?
horror, I am going to be watching Imaginary tomorrow. Speaking about PG-13, I'm not expecting
Much?
nothing
Yeah, me
good
neither.
out of that movie, especially it being Blumhouse. So, and then we got Damsel also dropping this weekend. So, 2 movie reviews coming out. So,
Yeah, go check out Perp's channel. I mean,
yeah.
seriously, he's been rolling with me. Links in the description. And definitely go show this man some love because Perp puts in the work. He makes like 16 videos a day. I'm just joking. It's more like 2 or 3, but it feels like 16. This man is probably has a video in his mind right now while we're talking that he's gonna make
Maybe,
after seeing Dune.
maybe.
So go check out Perp. He's one of the hardest working channels here on the platform. Much love. He's been rolling with the Phantom Zone for quite some time now, and we're always glad to have him on here. And today, later on, as a matter of fact, at fucking 9:30, I'm gonna be streaming again. We're gonna be doing a Robert Zemeckis tier list with me, Sean Stackhouse, Chris Knight, uh, Pop Culture PB. We're gonna do a tier list of the best Robert Zemeckis and worst about Robert Zemeckis films. And if you don't know who he is, he made like Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, those things. We'll go through the movies. Jewel of the Nile, I believe. He's done a lot of great movies, and we're going to do a tier list. And how we do it is we all say where we're going to place them on the tier. We split the difference, and then the ratings determined. Also, too, I've been going back through with Bitchy and watching Walking Dead, so I might on my own do a season Walking Dead tier list, which the best seasons of The Walking Dead. It's going to be fucking huge. Perp, maybe if you're interested, you can join me on that tier list. Ranking the best Walking Dead
Possibly, maybe.
seasons.
Interesting.
Yeah, we'll see. We don't know. Perp's a wild card here in the Phantom Zone. But yeah, I've been watching a lot of Walking Dead. I just watched Dead City, which was fucking amazing. Uh, the ones we love and things like that. So definitely go check out that. And yeah, we'll be back here shortly. We'll be back at 9:30 p.m. Come and check us out. Thank you everybody for watching. Click that like, share, subscribe. And also, please definitely check out the link in the description for my amazing sponsor, which is MoviePalette.com. If you like movies like Dune, uh, National Treasure, all of those, go check out the link in the description for MoviePalette.com. And if you put in Zone 15, you will save 15% off of all purchases on top of any sales they have. So thank you everybody for watching. And remember, there's only one rule here in the Phantom Zone: kneel before Zod.